Hello, my name is Eric, your host of Our Black Gay Diaspora podcast. For this sit down, I am joined by Montreal-based Canadian author Russel Brooks. He is the author of 4 suspense thrillers, which include Pandora's Succession, Unsavory Delicacies, Chili Run, and the Demeter Code. His most recent is titled Jam Run. It's Russell's first Afro-Caribbean LGBTQ-themed crime novel and the second in the Eddie Barrow crime novel series. For those of you who enjoy, quote, suspense thrillers with conspiracies, martial arts, sex, betrayal, and revenge, then you don't need to look any further, end quote. I look forward to hearing more about who Russell is as a Black gay professional, and he has the distinction of being my first Canadian guest. No pressure. So without further ado, welcome, Russell, and greetings and welcome. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me, inviting me on your show.
I don't have to say this, but I'll just say it for the audience. We had a recording set up for yesterday, but there were technical difficulties. So actually, I do say that to say thank you, Russell, for agreeing to reschedule.
You're welcome.
So was that the flag from Barbados?
Yes, that's where my family is originally from. My roots are always going to be in Barbados, even though I was born here in Montreal.
Have you visited the country a lot?
Oh yes, I visited there a few times. My last time I was there was in 2000, was Christmas 2017, and I stayed there till New Year's, just a little bit after New Year's in 2018. So it's always nice to be down in Barbados when it's frigid cold up here in Montreal. So nice Christmas without snow, very pleasant. You can go outside in shorts and tank top. You go to the beach.
Okay. You're the second person with that family lineage. I had a guest from Danya Pig Goat.
Yes.
So yeah, it's great to hear Barbados being represented. Rihanna would be proud.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were recording on the 25th of June. So how's your day shaping up so far?
Well, my day is very quiet. I'm just taking more and more time for myself because I've been always running up and down busy, and I know I need to take a break because it's come to the point where I'm forgetting which day it is. And anybody that I've met yesterday or the day before, if you ask me, what did you do yesterday or the day before, I won't even remember. So,
Thank you for sharing that because you're being transparent, and if I'm to be transparent too, our technical difficulties. I shared with you yesterday that I just arrived about almost 2 weeks ago here in Cape Town, South Africa, after being back in Sweden for a few months. And after we ended and we rescheduled, I was like, I haven't really given myself permission to kind of slow down to recognize that I'm in a different country, a different energy. I'm in the same time zone as Sweden. So I didn't have to deal with the jet lag, but I still need to slow down to kind of catch my breath. So thank you for leading with that example.
of course, South Africa is one of the countries I would like to visit. I'm interested in visiting Rwanda. I was already in Madagascar in 1997 for Les Jeux de la Francophonie because I used to be a track athlete, and I represented Team Quebec in the 100 meters, the 200 meters, and the 4x100 meter relay. They're so friendly, they're so human. I mean, they see me and they know that I am not from, they know I'm a foreigner. They were so appreciative of everything that we take for granted. It was just, a real eye opener for me. So,
Yeah, you brought up your athletic career, and I did see you had a recent posting about that in connection to a particular day. Was that just in college, or was that a professional road for you?
the picture of me in the Team Canada outfit in full
Yes.
action. That picture was
Yes.
taken at the World University Games in 1999 in Palma de Mallorca, Spain. Boy, I had a great time there. Oh my goodness, it was so hot there. It was so hot. I can understand why they have siestas over there in Spain.
Did you ever think about pursuing that as a professional career?
Running track and field, yes, that was my dream to go to the Olympics, but unfortunately, I ran into problems with proper coaching,
Mhm.
and then there was the injuries. It was very difficult, and even though there were some many good memories, there are many bad memories as well. that I just don't like to talk about.
Well, thank you for allowing us to stay on that for a brief moment. So, of course, that's not why you're here on this platform. I know you as an author,
Yeah,
and I want to say congratulations on the success of your latest novel called Jam Run,
thank you.
which I know is inspired by a real life tragedy. Dwayne Jones, a Jamaican 16-year-old who was murdered in 2013. Before we get into how it inspired your work, how was it for you when you first heard about this tragedy?
As I've told everyone, when I first read the news about this young guy who showed up at a dance party outside of Montego Bay dressed as a woman, nobody knew until he made the fatal mistake of confiding in a girl from his church. She outed him to all of her male friends, and that's when everything went downhill. And just fast forward to the next day, his body was found. He had been beaten, he had been stabbed, shot, and run over with the vehicle. It wasn't just the fact that he was murdered, it was the way that he was murdered. Anyone could be so evil to do something like that to another human being. Jamaica is no secret. Jamaica has a bad reputation when it comes to the fair and equal treatment of the LGBTQ community down there. Personally, I was there in Jamaica last January. It was kind of like a vacation for me, but at the same time, I took advantage of that time to visit every location where my story took place. And I have to be honest with you, everyone I met, I'd say 99% of the people I met were very, very warm, very friendly. Of course, I did not, that I'm, let's say, like LGBTQ or an ally or anything of that sort there. I went down there as a Canadian of Barbadian ancestry who was just there to enjoy themselves. And I was treated very well. By the same token, I took a day trip to Kingston to visit one of my collaborators who was the assistant director of prosecutions. She helped me with the content, with the legal content of the story. One thing that's very important for me is that when I'm writing a story, to make sure that my facts are correct. Yes, it's a crime thriller, so there are police procedures, and I want to make sure that my laws are factually correct, so that they're consistent with the story and the setting of the story, which takes place in Jamaica. I went to visit her, okay, and she showed me around Kingston. I met her in Spanish Town, which is outside of Kingston. Now, she told me, okay, if I have a chance to visit KFC in Jamaica, because KFC in Jamaica is not the same KFC as in Canada or the United States. The different flavors, it's a more Jamaican style Kentucky Fried Chicken. The first thing I noticed that there were several people around me, several guys that stood out. Okay? Not by the way they behaved, but it was more like, the way they were dressed. They weren't effeminate, but it was just the way that they acted. Let me just say, my gaydar went off around these people here, and I said, okay, these are gays and lesbians. And one thing I noticed is that they hung around as a group. They sat together. And that's one thing I realized, okay, look, there's safety in numbers, and that's why they were staying together. And there was also a friend of mine who came to Canada as a refugee, and I actually helped him. He left Jamaica because he did not feel safe there. And he told me that everything is so underground. If you want to be safe and not be ostracized or be persecuted, you're forced to basically live underground. So
You were there for vacation, but you said you also use it as research and for fact checking. Can you share how it influenced or the premise of the novel Jam Run?
one of the locations I visited was the actual spot where Dwayne Jones was murdered. In the first chapter of Jam Run, the scene, I bring it to a location called Irwin, and the street name is Pega Road. That's the exact location where Dwayne Jones was murdered in real life. And I recreated that scene for the story. Actually, I just made a few changes because that neighborhood has changed a little bit since 2013. The nightclub or that bar does not exist anymore. It's now like a car graveyard. My guide who assisted me, his name is Norris Douglas of Realtors Jamaica. He helped me fact check all the Jamaican content while I was writing the story. Now, being there on site was a different experience. It didn't seem like the safest area,
even in the daytime.
even in the daytime. Being there, there are so many things that I saw that I would not have included in the book had I not been there myself.
And Eddie Barrow, this is his second time being showcased in one of your literary works.
Yes,
Thank you for the copy of it.
you're welcome.
I'll be honest, I assumed because you're part of the LGBTQ community that the protagonist would be gay
Okay,
or from the community. How is it writing from a straight person's perspective for you?
okay. Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. When I first wrote Chill Run, originally Eddie Barrow was going to be gay.
Hmm.
Okay, he was going to be a gay black male. Okay, Afro-Caribbean male. When I submitted the first chapter to my content editor, the one I had at the time, she told me that she didn't think it would be a good idea to have a gay male lead, simply because, said Russell, since your biggest audience is in the United States, America is not ready for a gay character, a gay protagonist. So I decided, look, I'll make him gay friendly. There's some LGBTQ content in Chill Run, but it's very minimal because it wasn't the focus of the story, and certainly not as much as in Jam Run. The plots of Chill Run and Jam Run are totally different. In Chill Run, Eddie Barrow, he's trying to become an author. But in Jam Run, he's already established as an author, and he just happens to be there in Jamaican Montego Bay for a book signing when he witnesses a savage murder, and he gets roped into trying to solve it.
Have you been able to hear responses from people from Jamaica or from the Caribbean about this particular work?
About Jam Run, unfortunately,
Yeah.
I've reached out to reviewers or book bloggers in the Caribbean, and unfortunately, I haven't gotten any responses. All the reviews that are posted right now are from people from either here in Canada or the United States, and there are a few in Great Britain. The responses were positive. In fact, Jam Run, it's my blackest novel to date, and
Mhm.
it's my best reviewed novel to date. On Goodreads, it's all 4 and 5 star reviews with one 3-star review. I want to have more reviews from the Afro Caribbean community, but it seems I have a little bit more difficulty reaching out to them.
The novel was released this past May, if I'm correct.
March 31st.
March 31st, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm just being optimistic. We're still early.
Yeah, it's still early. When I went to Barbados, I was in Barbados, let me see, when I was there in, I believe it was 2013, it was right before the Demeter Code came out. I was a guest on Good Morning Barbados, or I should say,
Oh, wow.
I think it's called Morning Barbados, which is like Good Morning America. I was a guest because one of the hosts, she read Chill Run. Well, her words were, "This beats a movie," and she had a lot of fun reading Chill Run, and she gave a very good endorsement of it. So I think part of the reason is part of the barrier. I'm so far away from Barbados and the Caribbean that mostly about access as well. So I just probably have to do a better job networking in the Caribbean to get more attention.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just to go back to when I asked you about being surprised about the protagonist, that helped me with my own assumptions or prejudices because as soon as I started reading, I was like, well, James Baldwin, he wrote different characters, and they didn't have to be gay. And reading your book is reminding me that we don't have to just speak in our voice. If you have the talent, you can create the character.
Mhm. I want to use Jamron also as a means to introduce more LGBTQ characters, and this is something that readers can expect in my future novels as well.
Now, for those of us who would like to buy Jam Run and your other works, where can we find them?
Well, you can find them on Amazon. barnesandnobles.com, and also on Kobo, and also on iTunes also.
Oh, as an Audible.
Yeah. Oh, no, no,
Oh,
it's not
nice.
Audible. It's only available as an ebook or as a soft cover paperback.
Oh, okay, okay. You were recently at the Motive, Crime, and Mystery Festival in Toronto. Were you a participant?
Yes, I'm a member of the Crime Writers of Canada. So every year, Crime Writers of Canada has their own tent at the Motive, Crime, and Mystery Festival. This is my second time there, and there's another book fair in Toronto called the Word on the Street Book Fest, which is massive, which is 10 times bigger. I had my best. I had my best performance there. Well, when I say performance, I had the best sales. I had a record of 48 books sold in 2 days of that event there. My top seller was Jam Run. I only came down with 20 copies. I did not expect that I would need any more, but all 20 copies sold out in 2 days.
And these are all physical copies.
Yes, these are all
Wow,
physical
okay.
copies though.
That's good to hear. So, how is the writing process for you? Like, are you one of these authors who you hear some need to go off when they're ready to commit to a project and, say, rent a cabin somewhere and be alone or isolated from the general population? How is the writing process for you?
Well, for me, I can write anywhere I go. Most of my writing is at home. I always start out with an outline. I have my index cards. Whenever I have an idea, I write down the notes, and until I have the beginning, the middle, and the end. I will develop from what I wrote on the index cards and flesh it out, and I'll do the research to back up what I write, because for me, everything, it's very important that everything be as factually correct as possible, because some of the things that I go through as an author is people saying, "Oh, that would never happen in real life," or "This would never happen in real life." In my first novel, Pandora Succession, which is about a biological weapon that was accidentally unearthed by the melting of the polar ice caps, okay, a prehistoric microbe that resurfaced as a result of global warming and that was later weaponized. Okay, some people were saying, "Well, that would never happen in real life." They're saying that though viruses or microbes cannot survive in the cold for so long. I'll just find an article in Science magazine and I would forward them the link and say, "You were sane." So that sort of thing. And it was this is probably one of the most important things, especially when you're an independent writer. It's very important for you to be very credible. I mean, how can I say it? Years ago, it was much more difficult to be an independent writer, to write independently or self publish your books, because back then, the mentality was that, look, if you're not picked up by a traditional publisher, then it means that your book is rubbish. I have to get ahead of that because I know that many people are going to be thinking that even before they even give me a chance. I have to make sure that I appear to be knowledgeable about the subject matter and even be an expert on the subject matter in order to gain the same respect. Pandora Succession and the Demeter Code, these are spy novels, and I did my research on how the CIA operates and how other spy agencies or the intelligence community operates. I even consulted with someone who who studied in the field and to make sure I had all my facts correct.
What's your educational background? Because you sound like a researcher to the point of you being able to recognize when something doesn't feel right. I know I've seen movies or programs or even read novels, and I've had those similar experiences. Like, I'm not a doctor, but this doesn't feel right. So, yeah, what's your educational background?
I went to Indiana University on a track and field scholarship, and I graduated with a bachelor's in biology and a minor in psychology. When you're writing a report, it's important to always back up your sources. And it shows in the reviews I've been getting. Most of them were not in our age generation, but they were older age generation from Great Britain, from the United States, and even Australia. They all read Pandora's Succession, and I'll never forget one lady from Australia. She said she enjoyed Pandora's Succession. However, She said that it scared her. It scared her because it was too realistic. She was too scared to read the Demeter Code because she felt that she wouldn't be able to sleep at night because it was too realistic, thinking that something like this could happen in real life. And the real life event that inspired Jam Run, I think it touched many readers. It touched them deep down inside to think that something like this so horrific can happen to someone. In fact, the last review for Jam Run was reviewed by a mother. She has a child who's gay, and from her perspective as a mother, she said that there are many parts of the story that were very difficult for her to get through. Okay, it's not just about entertainment, but I want people to feel the characters, to know what they're going through, to empathize with them. This worked well with her.
I mean, I know in my lifetime things have gotten better as far as the legal rights that we have, and some of the social things have changed, but we still are needing to shine a spotlight, as you're doing, on the realities of what one doesn't want to happen, but just to be mindful of that.
Yes,
Because we are not the only ones can do the work. Our allies and those in our family circles can help with that too.
exactly.
As an author, as a professional, have you ever been encouraged to downplay your queerness?
Downplay. Well, I have to be honest with you, Eric. I'm not officially out. It's only now
Oh,
I decided
okay.
to. One of the reasons I agreed to this interview here is because I want to come out. This form right here is the first time that I've actually officially come out. So,
Okay. How do you feel about that right now?
well, I mean, it's a little bit liberating. It's just that growing up, it was very difficult. When I was in high school, you just think that you're going through a phase. You're just trying to blend in. You're trying to fit in. I would just hear things, and unfortunately, the things that I heard were always the negative ones. So when I was hearing all these negative things, I said, "Well, that's not me. I don't sexually assault little boys, or children. I mean, that was the myth. I've heard far worse things." And I said, "Well, that's not me. I'm not a bad guy. I've always treated everyone with respect." A lot of the misinformation about the LGBTQ community back in those days, and I believe this is one of the reasons several people are forced to remain in the closet, and also the absence of the non-visibility of LGBTQ people of color. That is not very predominant. So I'm growing up thinking, okay, this is probably just a white thing. This is not something that should be affecting Black people. And what made them even more complicated is that when I started running track and field, I joined a track club. And the track club I joined predominantly had Jamaican athletes. Most of them were all older than I was. So I was the black sheep out of this group here. So I'm the only one of Barbadian ancestry who was born here. Once they got into the Jamaican patois, I couldn't understand a word they were saying. And I knew I got the feeling that they were mocking me several times. So the only thing I can do to gain their respect is show them how fast I can run. And I was faster than most of them. They couldn't mock me as an athlete. But on the other side, I overheard many homophobic comments coming from them, jokes and everything like that. I showed up, I was very nervous at times. Any of those discussions of gay or lesbian, I stayed away from those conversations. These were some of the many challenges I faced when I was growing up. Eventually, when I got into university, I was still dating girls at the time. It was only when I was in university that I felt that I was holding in something. Something was struggling to get out. I had these drives, I had these feelings, I had these emotions, but I was still trying to convince myself that it's just a phase. I'll grow out of it. But I came to realize it wasn't a phase anymore, and I had to think of my career. If I'm going to go to the Olympics and I'm going to get a sponsor, well, then you have to be on your best behavior and keep yourself in the closet. And all the work and effort I put into training, trying to become a track athlete to go to the Olympics or represent Canada, that's going to go out. That's going to go out the window. It was a big struggle.
Well, wow. Congratulations. I know it takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing right now. What is your plan after this? Do you have a network to kind of share how you're feeling after this?
I have a few friends from the LGBTQ community. Some of them are couples, okay, and my former priest, okay, she's retired right now. She's one of the first priests here in Montreal that advocated for LGBTQ rights. She and I get along very well. And it's very comforting to know that, there are people out there who will care about me and who will respect me no matter what, and who will support me. These are the people I want to hang around with more and more.
Very much so. Yeah, I came out in my late 20s, and you just brought back a lot of those memories and those emotions. But again, it's a reminder that it's never too late to own who we are. So congratulations again.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
When did you discover your gifts as a writer?
I was writing since I was in elementary school, just like I would just do little short stories just for fun. When I was in grade six, I wrote my first detective story. Okay, I would just call it a story. It was probably about 10, 12 pages long or 15 pages. I don't even remember. I was in class one day, one afternoon, and my French teacher, she caught me red handed with it and she took it from me. She read it to the class. Okay, I thought I was in trouble. I thought she was trying to embarrass me or that say, look, okay, Russell is going to get in trouble for this because he's not paying attention in class. But no, what she did instead is that when she read the story in front of the whole class from beginning to end, she told everyone, okay, let's give Russell a round of applause for such good
Wow,
work.
that's beautiful.
Before she gave it back to me, I saw her writing a little note. And when she gave it back to me, I read the note. She said that I like this story, but next time, Russell, one of these days, I want to see your books published. In Quebec, we don't have junior high. It's not like the rest of Canada. We have
Hmm.
we go straight from grade 6 to grade 7 in high school, and it's from
Hmm.
grade 7 to 11. Now, when I started in high school in grade 7, I decided I was going to write my first novel. I had a typewriter, and then a family friend, he donated his his electric typewriter to help me. So yeah, I learned. I wrote my first book on a typewriter. I wrote it, then I abandoned it. I started writing again, and I abandoned it, and I went to finish high school. I finished university, and then I read an interesting crime thriller, or I should say a suspense thriller, by Vince Flynn. It was called Term Limits. And it was the first time I actually read a spy novel that really caught my attention. I said to myself, wow, there's actually a genre for this in the market. And this is what triggered me to say, look, let me start back writing that book I started when I was 12 years old. And I did. And this time when I wrote it, of course, I was much more educated because of my biology degree. So I used my biology degree to help create a fictitious biological weapon and rewrite after rewrite after rewrite. Just to make a long story short, the story I started when I was 12 years old finally got published in 2010. It was called Pandora's Succession.
Hmm.
It would have been 2019 when I linked up with one of my friends from high school. We had coffee one afternoon, and the subject of our grade 6 teacher, Madame Marie Bédard, came up. And I was saying to myself, I've always wanted to get back in touch with her. I never forgot what she told me when I was in grade 6. And she said, well, look, Russell, her daughter is one of my students. She linked me with her on Facebook, and
Hmm.
I friended her on Facebook, and within minutes, she friended me back. She remembered me.
Wow.
she remembered me. I did a selfie video, and I had my tablet where I went on Kindle, and I just recorded a message for her saying that I remember what you told me when I was in grade 6 several years ago. I decided to act on your advice, and as you can see today, at the time I had 4 books out, and
Mhm.
I scrolled through each one of them, and I said, "Thank you, Madame Bédard, for believing in me, and I'll never forget what you said and what you did for me." She wrote back to me. She said, "Russell, I never forgot you. You're just one of those people. You're just one of those students that a teacher will never forget, no matter how hard they try." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Okay, I hope that's a good thing, you know." But
Yes.
she was at the hair salon getting her hair done at the time, so she was actually sitting in the chair getting her hair done when she watched my video, and then she saw me scroll through all the books that I wrote. She told me that she cried. It made her cry. I mean, and she immediately bought all of them.
She's an angel, that she first of all recognized your talent, your gifts, and let you know it. For you to find her years later and let her know how she impacted you, that, what she does as an educator or what she did as an educator did not go in vain.
Yes.
I'm sure for her that was quite a beautiful thing to become aware of.
Yeah. I met her on March 31st. She came to my book launch party. And it
Wow.
was, when I saw her, it's just like someone was cutting onions in the room. I mean, it was hard
Mm,
for me to hold back my emotion after all these years, and she still
yeah.
looks great. She still looks the same way. It was really a touching moment.
I'm kind of absorbing that right now. It's definitely a story that I can see cinematically, just, such an inspirational story. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Hearing you speak French reminds me that
Ben
you're
oui.
from
Ici au Québec, nous sommes.
Montreal.
Moi, je suis complètement bilingue. Je parle français et anglais.
Euh,
I speak both
j'ai
French and English.
étudié pendant 4 ans quand j'étais jeune au lycée, mais see, Spanish and Swedish mix in with me now.
Okay.
But I went to Montreal in 2012. That was the first time I traveled outside of the United States by myself,
Oh,
and I
wow.
loved the city. But I also recognized that the French there, to my ear, felt very different or sounded very different.
It's very different from the French that is spoken in France. If I were to meet someone from France, I can tell that they're not from Quebec, because the accent and even the expressions are different. So
Yeah. And it's funny because I hadn't spoken or tried to speak French in years. So I arrived like, oh, I have 2 years in high school, 2 years in college. I got this. And I went to my first place to eat, and he spoke back to me, obviously in French. And I was like, oof.
yes, but here's the
Yeah.
thing. There's here in Quebec there are language laws. The Anglophones are driven crazy by all these language laws. The laws here in Quebec, if you have a business, then your signs have to be predominantly in French. If there's English, it has to be practically in fine print. Okay, and I don't know if you heard about this, but I say probably about 10 years ago, there was a big scandal here that was dubbed "Past the Gate." There's actually the language, the Office Québécois de la langue française. In other words, they're nicknamed as the language police, that can actually go from business to business. And if it's not up to code, if there's not predominantly French, you can get fined. When they went to an Italian restaurant, okay, an Italian restaurant where the menus are in Italian, and they got fined because there wasn't enough French. Now, this is an Italian restaurant that's serving Italian cuisine. I believe even the New York Times picked up on it. It was probably one of the most embarrassing moments, okay, for Quebec. Now, let me tell you a joke. Let me tell you a funny story. When I went to France, I went to Paris for a track meet, okay? And one evening, me and my friends decided to go to McDonald's. I already knew what I wanted, because my favorite sandwich is the McChicken sandwich. So here in Quebec, it's called le Mac Poulet. Okay,
Okay.
it's not called McChicken. It's called the Mac Poulet. When I got to the counter, I asked for j'aimerais avoir un Mac Poulet, s'il vous plaît. I'd like to have
Hmm.
the Mac Poulet, please. And she was going, un quoi? I said, I
Really?
repeated the Mac Poulet, and she goes, le quoi? I was saying the word in French, okay, Mac Poulet, as I'm accustomed to saying here in Quebec, in Montreal. And I actually did the what, like that, to get her attention so she understands. And she goes, ah, tu veux le Mac Chicken? And I go, a what? And that's when I looked at the menu and I noticed that the menu, it's not called Mac Poulet, it's called Le McChicken. So for me, it was like culture shock, okay? So obviously in France, there's not the same xenophobia that the English is going to take over France as it is here in Quebec. That's one experience I'll never forget. So
Well, me coming from the US, I love language. I mean, I love words. I also write. So I think it's great because so many languages throughout human history have been lost. I hope I can say this as an American, but I do believe the stereotype is true that many of us, especially when we travel internationally, do you speak English? And it's like, first of all, ask if you could speak English.
mhm,
Don't assume that everyone can speak it.
yeah,
And I think language is so important. And with me, being in Sweden, I try to learn it, and as much as possible, I took classes, and they always revert to English because they hear my accent if you're a native English speaker. But I try. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to keep your language. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, but it's funny to hear that you went to France, the mother of the language, and you're like, you don't understand what I'm saying.
I was surprised. I mean, and it's funny when I went to Germany. I was in Germany once for a track meet as well, and I went to a grocery store just to get some Red Bull. And I know that there are many people in Germany who do speak English, but in this grocery store, the employee I was speaking to, she was an older woman. She did not speak English. I had to act out. I had to be creative and act out that I wanted a soft drink. So I had to, just pretend I'm holding the thing, kick, and that, like that. And she go, soft drink. And she drank. She laughed and she brought me to the right aisle where I was able to find what I was looking for.
But those are the great things, I think, stories with, especially traveling internationally. Like I said, I know some Swedish. English is a Germanic language, and so is Swedish, but Swedish is a bit closer to it. And like I went to Berlin 3 years ago, right before the pandemic, for my birthday, and there were some words I was able to pick out because of the Swedish that I knew at the time. So it was
Okay.
interesting to discover that. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much. This has been revealing, enlightening, educational. And I just wanted to ask you, do you have any final thoughts or insights?
Well, all I can say is that I listen to your podcast. I've been listening to it every day. Every time I drive my car, I have my cell phone on tuned into Spotify. So the moment I turn on my car, I hear you and I hear your guests. Actually, I heard about you through as another writer. His name is Rashid Newsom.
Yeah.
Yes, we've connected through Twitter, and I think I was following the cast of Bel Air. I also follow Jimmy Akimbola. He's one of the few celebrities who's actually responded to my tweets. And I said, wow. And I think it's through them that I connected with Rashid Newsom. And I found him to be very interesting. And I started following his tweets. And I was looking for some advice on how to get more reviews. And he's the one that told me to try and connect with people who do podcasts. Since I didn't know any podcasters, I decided to go through the lists of people who have interviewed him on podcasts, and I started to
Mhm.
contact them, and that's how I discovered you.
Okay. The network.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been following you, of course, on social media on Instagram. So, where else can we engage with you online?
Well, I'm on Goodreads, goodreads.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, and I have my own website, russellparkway.com. If you want to contact me about anything, feel free to do so. If I have a chance, I will respond. I try to respond to as many people as possible, provided I have the time.
Okay, okay. Well, I'll definitely be sharing your links and your information, and you're insightful, and I definitely feel your intellect and your passion for the truth. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks again for having me. I had a lot of fun this afternoon.
Thank you for spending time with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Share with your friends too. You can also follow us on Instagram at Our Black Gay Diaspora and on Twitter at BLK Gay Diaspora. Until next time.